The Café of Contemplation. In a quiet corner of Paris, tucked away from the bustling streets and the throngs of tourists, stood a small, unassuming café. Its name, Café de la Contemplation, was etched in elegant script above the door. The café had an air of timelessness, as if it had existed there forever, a sanctuary for those seeking solace in their thoughts. Jacques, a young philosopher, frequented the café. He was in his late 20s, with a disheveled appearance that belied his keen intellect. His days were often spent in deep thought, pondering the meaning of life, existence, and the human condition. Jacques was an existentialist, a follower of the philosophical tradition that sought to understand the essence of human existence. On a particularly dreary autumn afternoon, Jacques found himself at his usual table by the window, nursing a cup of black coffee. The rain tapped a steady rhythm on the glass, creating a soothing backdrop for his introspection. He watched the raindrops race down the window, each one tracing a unique path before merging with others and disappearing into oblivion. It reminded him of the fleeting nature of life, the impermanence of existence. Jacques was grappling with a profound sense of despair. Despite his intellectual pursuits, he could not shake the feeling that life was inherently meaningless. The works of Sartre, Camus, and Kierkegaard offered some solace, but the existential dread lingered, gnawing at his soul. He questioned his purpose, his place in the world, and whether any of it truly mattered. As he stared out the window, a figure caught his eye. A young woman, drenched from the rain, stood under the awning, peering into the café. Her eyes met Jacques', and she hesitated for a moment before stepping inside. She shook off the rain, glanced around, and made her way to the counter. After ordering a cup of tea, she scanned the room for a seat. Noticing the café was nearly full, Jacques waved her over to his table. "Please have a seat," he offered, gesturing to the empty chair opposite him. "Thank you," she replied, smiling softly. She removed her wet coat and draped it over the back of the chair. "I'm Isabelle." "Jacques," he introduced himself, extending a hand. They shook hands, and for a moment Jacques felt a strange connection, as if he had known her for much longer than a few seconds. Isabelle's presence was calming, her demeanor reflective and thoughtful. They sat in silence for a while, each lost in their own thoughts. Eventually, Jacques broke the silence. "What brings you to this little corner of Paris on such a miserable day?" Isabelle sipped her tea before responding. "I come here to think, to escape the chaos of the city. There's something about this place that allows me to reflect on my life, my choices." Jacques nodded in agreement. "I come here for the same reason. There's a certain tranquility here, a space for contemplation." They fell into an easy conversation, discussing their favorite books, philosophical ideas, and the nature of existence. Isabelle shared her love for literature, particularly the works of Kafka and Dostoevsky, while Jacques spoke passionately about existentialism and the search for meaning in an indifferent universe. "I often wonder," Isabelle mused, "whether we are truly free to make our own choices, or if we are merely products of our circumstances, our upbringing." Jacques leaned back in his chair, considering her words. "Existentialists believe that we are condemned to be free. We have the freedom to choose, but with that freedom comes the burden of responsibility. Our choices define us, shape our existence." Isabelle nodded thoughtfully. "But what if the choices we make lead to suffering, to despair? How do we find meaning in a world that seems so indifferent, so chaotic?" Jacques sighed. "That is the central question of existentialism. Camus argued that we must imagine Sisyphus happy, finding meaning in the struggle itself. It is not the destination that matters, but the journey, the act of choosing and living authentically." As the afternoon wore on, the café began to empty. The rain had stopped, and the sky cleared, revealing a golden sunset. Jacques and Isabelle continued their conversation, losing track of time. They spoke of their dreams, their fears, and the moments of joy and sorrow that defined their lives. For the first time in a long while, Jacques felt a sense of connection, a feeling that his existence mattered. Isabelle's presence was a reminder that human relationships, the bonds we form with others, are an essential part of our search for meaning. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the café, Jacques realized that his despair had lifted, replaced by a sense of hope. He had found a kindred spirit in Isabelle, someone who shared his existential journey and understood the weight of his thoughts. "Isabelle," he said, breaking the comfortable silence, "would you join me for a walk? I think there's more to discuss, more to explore." She smiled warmly. "I'd love to, Jacques." They left the café together, stepping out into the crisp evening air. The streets of Paris were still wet from the rain, glistening under the streetlights. As they walked, side by side, Jacques felt a newfound sense of purpose. He realized that the search for meaning was not a solitary endeavor, but a shared experience, enriched by the connections we make along the way. Their conversation flowed effortlessly as they wandered through the cobblestone streets of the Latin Quarter. They spoke of the absurdity of life, the inevitability of death, and the freedom that comes with accepting these realities. Jacques found himself opening up about his deepest fears and insecurities, things he had never shared with anyone before. Isabelle listened with empathy and understanding, her presence a balm to his troubled soul. As they reached the banks of the Seine, they paused to take in the view. The Eiffel Tower glittered in the distance, its reflection dancing on the river's surface. Jacques felt a sense of awe, a reminder of the beauty that exists in the world, even amidst the chaos and uncertainty. "Do you ever feel like we're just tiny specks in the grand scheme of things?" Jacques asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "All the time," Isabelle replied. "But I also believe that even the smallest speck can make a difference. Our actions, our choices, they ripple out into the world, touching the lives of others in ways we can't always see." Jacques nodded, absorbing her words. "It's comforting to think that our existence has some impact, however small." They continued their walk, eventually finding themselves in front of Isabelle's apartment building. She turned to Jacques, her eyes reflecting the streetlight's glow. "Thank you for today, Jacques. I haven't had such a meaningful conversation in a long time." "Neither have I," Jacques admitted. "I'm glad we met, Isabelle." She smiled, and for a moment they stood there in comfortable silence. Then, with a final nod, Isabelle disappeared into her building, leaving Jacques alone with his thoughts. As he walked back to his own apartment, Jacques felt a sense of renewal. His existential angst had not vanished, but it had been tempered by the connection he had made with Isabelle. He realized that the search for meaning was not about finding definitive answers, but about embracing the journey, the uncertainty, and the beauty of human existence. The following days saw Jacques and Isabelle meeting frequently at the Café de la Contemplation. They delved deeper into their philosophical discussions, exploring the works of Nietzsche, Heidegger, and de Beauvoir. Their friendship blossomed, grounded in mutual respect and a shared quest for understanding. Jacques' outlook on life began to shift. He found joy in the little moments, the fleeting interactions that made up the tapestry of his existence. He started to see the café not just as a place of solitude, but as a space where human connections were forged and nurtured. One evening, as they sat in their usual spot, Isabelle broached a new topic. "Have you ever considered the role of art in existentialism?" Jacques' eyes lit up. Art is a profound expression of the human condition. It captures the beauty and tragedy of existence, the raw emotions that define our lives. Isabel nodded. Art can be a way of making sense of the absurd, of finding meaning in the chaos. It's a testament to our ability to create, to leave a mark on the world. Their conversation meandered through various forms of art, from literature to music to painting. Jacques felt a deep appreciation for the ways in which art transcended the mundane, offering glimpses of the sublime. As the night wore on, Jacques realized how much he had changed. The despair that once consumed him had given way to a sense of purpose. He understood that life was inherently uncertain, but it was this very uncertainty that made it beautiful. The connections he had forged, the moments of genuine human interaction, were what gave his existence meaning. Isabel had become more than a friend. She was a kindred spirit, a fellow traveler on the existential journey. Together, they navigated the complexities of life, finding solace in each other's company. In the end, Jacques learned that existentialism was not about escaping despair, but about confronting it head-on. It was about living authentically, embracing the freedom to choose, and finding meaning in the struggle. With Isabel by his side, he was ready to face whatever the future held, one step at a time. And so, in the quiet corner of Paris, in a small café that seemed to exist outside of time, Jacques and Isabel continued their journey. They found meaning not in grand answers, but in the simple, profound act of being present, of sharing their thoughts.